Tallow's definitely over in this location for sure. You can see how it's already gone to seed there. It's gone. It's an older tree, so yeah, it'll seed first, but there are no blooms left here at all. Here's a younger tallow tree in the same yard. It hasn't gone to seed, but I'm not seeing any blooms on it either. Nothing but leaves. So pretty much, I mean, as far as I can tell, tallow's long done. No surprise there, everybody else is starting to extract. Some of them are definitely making honey. They're slam full here. I'm noticing the same thing. This is the second half of that Tupelo yard. It was just like when we were pulling the Tupelo, I don't know, seems like ages ago now. Hives look way better over on this side of the yard and making way more honey. Over there, a lot more dead outs, a lot more queenless. And still a lot of boxes of foundation. So it's really night and day. That yard is kind of, it's not bad, it's just, it's not very good. And then I come over here and this yard looking fantastic. I was going to move this half of the yard away here soon to a new bee yard so we don't have 200 hives in one spot when the honey flows over. But I'm half tempted to move those. I don't know if those hives are bad and these were just good when we brought them, or if somehow, and it seems unlikely, this little spot is just better for the bees. There's no shade or anything, and obviously there's no foliage that those hives can't get to that the ones behind me can. So it's very strange. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I don't know, maybe we ought to leave this side of the yard. Had to rebuild 3 out of the 4 hives here on the pallet. They were all dead. You can usually tell it definitely had beetle debris in all 3. The comb was still salvageable. It's close to getting iffy, but probably what happened is more than likely one of them got taken down by beetles, and then the beetles just spread around. That's usually what we see. They hit one hive on the pallet, and the other hive, they just move into the next weakest hive on that pallet. Plus, I'm sure there are a ton of beetle larvae somewhere in the ground here. So I don't want to just like rebuild that one with a couple frames or something. I rebuilt it completely as a nuke. I did 2 honey, 3 brood, mixed stages, cell, and I did that for all of them. That means we basically had to pull out, like I say, a full 5-frame nuke out of some of these stronger honey producers. But with honey pretty much being over, I don't really care too much, as long as we can keep these stable. This is one of the Hive and a halves. It was really strong. They had made a full medium box of honey here that I pulled a full 5-frame nuke out of. I really just yanked out the first 5 frames, 2 honey, 3 brood, and I moved them over there to that pallet that I was just showing where we had rebuilt. I couldn't find the queen, and we have extra cells, so what I do in kind of in a situation like this, and we're trying to be quick today, I just drop a cell on both. I drop a cell in the parent colony that donated all the frames that was queen right, and then I drop a cell, of course, in the one that's queenless over there. There's probably a queen in here more than likely, so it will waste a cell, but just in case I pulled her and just didn't see her, I don't put this hive at a complete and total risk. That's always handy to do if you have extra cells on hand, because honestly sometimes it's just faster just to make an extra 100 cells that week or something, to sit there and try and find 100 queens that week, especially when they're in 2-story colonies. That can take quite a while. So just a little shortcut we do here. We didn't have enough frames with us last time because some of them were so old they broke, and they drew a really nice Burcombe frame here. We made it to the very end of the yard, not far off from 200 hives, and they decided they want to start robbing on the very last row. Look at that one, it's getting tore up. Man, and it probably is our fault. We had some old frames we threw out right there. Some of them had a little honey on them. Normally we take those and we move them outside of the edge of the bee yard. We go put them away on the truck. We were just in a rush, and honestly they haven't been robbing all day long, so whatever. Got lazy, started throwing them in between the pallets, and I bet you that's what started it, like that. Jumped. The hives are pretty strong over here. They're probably going to be fine. The other half of the yard's not robbing at all, but that's just stupid beekeeper mistake I made. Don't throw honey frames at the end of a honey flow in between pallets of hives. That's just dumb, but hey, it happens. Well, we double checked this yard. 25, there's 177 colonies left. There's some robbing going over here. Crap, that hive's ruined. There's 177 colonies here. 25 of them were queenless, or they were dead and had to be rebuilt. So I guess that's about a 14% queenless here. All these hives were queen right. We checked when we first brought them in. It was months ago when we were making Tupelo. So something happened. Either the ones we fixed then, because there were some queenless then, failed, or definitely some have swarmed. Some have turned into drone layers. These queens were all queens from last year. These were hives that came back from California and weren't split. So the queens could have just been old too, and gave up the ghost. So we rebuilt what we could. There's some here just couldn't rebuild, like where the empty spots are on the pallet. The beetles and the moths had just gotten to the hives, to the comb, and just completely decimated them. So we have to scrape those down the foundation. This side of the yard's doing much better. I would say we're going to make at least as much honey as we did on Tupelo. We made 3 barrels of Tupelo here. And every hive that had drawn comb when we re-supered with comb is full of wildflower now. So I expect us to get at least 3. I hope the robbing doesn't get too bad. It's been raining on and off all day. A few times we've just had to jump in the truck. It's just the time of year where it's how it is here in Florida. You get afternoon showers. Problem is when you get those showers come in and it gets overcast, the bees get real robby, on top of the fact the tallow is definitely done. I did shake a few frames and there's still some nectar in there. Now I don't know if it's really fresh or the bees just haven't had time to dehydrate it, or maybe the flow stopped and they're just not going to dehydrate it enough. But generally when the nectar comes out freely when you shake the frame, that's usually pretty fresh. I've always heard that's usually a few days old nectar at most. So there might be something. I don't think there's very much. I think we should go ahead and start getting prepared to extract, and especially seeing the robbing going on. Earlier today I was like, oh, the bees are fine. We don't have any problems with robbing, but they are. We still have to get the wax separator fixed. I'm hoping we can get that fixed this week and get the Tupelo spun out of there and get the honey house clean. I have to at minimum do that. I've still got about 10,000 other things that need to be finished before I really want to jump into our main extraction, but I just may not have time. So something's got to give, and I certainly don't want these bees to eat all that honey back, and I certainly don't want them to start robbing. And like I said, half this yard's going to have to be moved away too. There's just 177 is too many for this location. So we'll snatch up half the yard, get them out of here after we pull honey. So a lot to do, but overall yard's not terrible. Hopefully we saved some, and hopefully the other yards are also making honey. We'll have to see. We're getting close to the time where I need to order some syrup. Probably will here in just the next few weeks. I noticed some of our syrup totes were getting old, so I ran over to Gutler & Gutler and got these totes. They need to be pressure washed several times to get that water-based paint out of there. But that's really nice. We got 6 there. They threw some freight pallets on for me. Those are always handy to put the minis on. So I'm really glad for them for that. Cleaning them is a pain in the butt. I'm not gonna lie, it takes several times, but they're selling these things for $20. They used to be free. They're doing $20 a piece now, which is still a great deal because I think these things run for $300 brand new. So not a bad deal at all. Happy to have them. So next thing on the agenda list, since we're done splitting and we're done supering, outside of just running around and queen checking those the most recent splits, we're taking all the 5-frame nucs and transferring them over to the 10-frame boxes. Just dropping the nuke right there in the middle. Obviously all we have is foundation at this point, at least until we're done extracting, and then maybe we can come and dump some comb in there, I hope. But they've got 2 foundation here in the front, 3 foundation on the side. The nuke is there. We're just transferring them as their queen right, or as we pull the queen cage to sell to a customer or something. And kind of get started. We got a lot to do. We got several hundred of those that need to be transferred out. It's a pretty tedious process, but that needs to happen. These old boxes are just starting to fall apart. The rain's getting in. The beetles are just destroying them. And we're losing the comb. We're losing everything. It's pretty rough. The new Pro Nukes are holding up really well. We still haven't had them long enough, but they seem to be doing better, almost honestly, than the plastic Jester Nukes. They're doing much better than that off-brand plastic nuke that we bought. But I'm going to leave the 10 Jester Nukes that we bought this year in there all summer long. I want to see how they can hold up to the heat and how they can hold up to the sun. But everything else we're going to be transferring over. If we're still going to decide to sell queens, I mean, we may just keep these around as a backup if the minis fail. I may move them out to a bee yard. I haven't really decided yet what we're going to do with these. I mean, obviously pulling a queen out of a 10-frame single is a nightmare, but the revenue's been really good. So I'm not really sure. My hope is that we can rebuild and see a lot of the minis have just fallen. We've been so busy with splits and everything, and honey supers, we haven't been able to keep all the minis back in service. We've still got a good chunk, but there are many that need to be rebuilt. So my hope is to dump all the extra queen cells we'll be making from the cell builders back there, and to get them back up and running, since we won't be using them for splits. But still just a lot to do. Hopefully we can just finish everything this month. That's the goal before we start honey extraction, but we'll see. I saw a lot of people online talking about this for small hive beetle larvae. They've been spreading around the entrance of the hives, and apparently it doesn't hurt the bees. And supposedly, I mean, at least for the grubs, it claims it lasts 4 months. The hive beetles are getting so bad here in our mating yard that I'm going to go ahead and try it. I've never used anything outside of those beetle traps and roach poison in them to keep beetles down. And honestly, I haven't really even used those things, I think, in years, it feels like. It's just too hard for us at our scale to put traps and everything, or Swiffer pads and everything, and all that, those little techniques. So generally, we just keep them in the full sun, keep them strong. Well, this year, they're really taking us down. And again, I think it's just because those plastic boxes are kind of giving up the ghost. So we're going to try this, see how it works. I'm going to spread it around, and maybe we can save some colonies. While I'm out here transferring the Nucs over to deeps, I'm going to go ahead and cull out all our bad pallets, so that'll be done come California. And I'm also drilling all the holes, all the corners in the pallets, so we can have a good drain hole everywhere also, so we don't have to do it come this California, because that was just a little too chaotic last year. So that'll knock one step out for us. We're trying a foundationless cut cone box. I was just curious to see how they would do, and they do exactly like the minis when you don't give the mini frames any kind of foundation. They draw them totally sideways, so total bust. We should have seen that coming, but oh well, live and learn. First time I have ever seen this before. Just had a virgin queen hatch in the incubator, and she has got a mite on her. Never seen that. They're just hatching today. Actually, she hatched a little early. It's under her right wing. I'm trying to get a good, oh no, left wing. Holy crap, look at it crawling around. I didn't even know mites could really get on queens. That's terrifying. It's that time of year again. We don't have any rain for ages, and now it rains every day, and the ground's real saturated. And when we get a big storm like today, the bee yards will start flooding. You can see that nuke there is technically underwater. It's empty. I transferred it over to the deep the other day, but that's why we started putting those nuke boxes up on the freight pallets. Same thing with the minis, because we used to get them wiped out every time we had a really bad storm like we do. I'm going to have to come down here every hour just to check on the hives. If they get too bad, I've had to come down here before with a bobcat and set these on a freight pallet. It screws up with the orientation, but it's better than them getting flooded. Look at that. That was a big swarm that was up in this cedar tree. I saw it yesterday, and they just got pummeled by the rain. Just totally killed. There's a couple pallets here that I forgot to put onto a freight pallet, and it's back here against the creek. There's a creek that runs through the woods, and that thing overflows all the time. I'm gonna have to get the bobcat and go bring a couple freight pallets and set these on there, because that water, you can see, is near about at the entrance, and the rain's not gonna stop anytime soon. This is the creek that runs right behind our main bee yard here with our cell builders, our queen banks, everything. Usually it never runs dry, but it's generally pretty low. But when it gets high like this is kind of my marker, because once this sort of reaches up here where the bank is, the entire field back here will completely get underwater. We've literally had it get so flooded before, I mean during a major hurricane, that the bottom half of the double deep was completely underwater. So this is my marker. I just watch this. As long as the water stays behind the bank, all those hives that are on top of a freight pallet will be fine. But when it hits the bank, you either have to do 2 freight pallets, or you got to just move the bees out of here. Hopefully the rain will let up soon. Look at that, gross. At least the hive beetle larvae are getting wiped out. That's a small plus. I was able to get the sport colonies and the cell builders on a second layer of pallets, the ones that needed it anyways. You can already see a lot of the first pallet I put on these two that didn't have pallets is already completely underwater. By the time I got it here with the Bobcat, they just within, I mean, just a few minutes from me filming that initial footage of showing them without the pallet to me jumping on the Bobcat and bringing them and setting them on, they were already underwater. And I didn't bring my suit or anything with me. I didn't think they'd be too bad in the storm like this, but they tore my butt up. If I could just communicate to them that I'm actually here to help, I'm not here to steal their honey today. I don't think we got any permanent damage, and the rain is letting up just a little bit. But on a day like today, I can't go outside, I can't shower, I can't relax. You got to just sit out here and basically be on guard duty, and just sit here sopping, soaking wet. Because as soon as I go in and I shower and I put on clean clothes, rain picks up, I'll be right back out here. So I may as well just sit here. Well, the rain's pretty much let up. A little bit of drizzle. But it really didn't last that long. It just came on really hard, and I guess with the ground just being so wet because it's raining every day. I can still see a bit of water here. I don't think we did too much damage. Oh, that's why. You know, I thought this thing was on 2 pallets, and I kept trying to reach underneath and grab the bottom. This is the one that was steamy. I kept trying to reach underneath and pick up the bottom pallet, but there is no bottom pallet. It's over there. I couldn't see it because this whole area was underwater. No, those poor girls, no wonder. I was probably shoving the forks in them or something. I don't think we really lost any hives or anything. A lot of the plastic nucs out there in the mating yard definitely were holding water. I had to rock them forward when the rain stopped. That is the downside of the plastic nucs, is those suckers do not drain. Even if you have them at an angle, because if the rain comes in at the other opposite angle, it's going to hold water. So we're trying to get them transferred. The beetles are just knocking them down every day. I'm losing a few nucs every single day right now to beetles. So I'm trying to prioritize that. There's just so much going on, it's hard to keep up. But like these are not looking too bad. We're probably just going to have to, this is my first year putting them back here along the creek. I was worried about the flooding, which is why we put a pallet, but I think going forward we're just going to have to double pallet these things with the creek being back there in the woods. Here is package number 2. It was 3.24 pounds of bees, if I remember correctly. It's been in here for 6 days in our air conditioning trailer. I've also been turning the AC off at night, so it's been getting in the low to mid 70s here during the night, just to kind of see what would happen. So I kind of expect a higher die-off than the first package, because the first package, the AC ran day and night. I just want to see if I can do that. We'll open her up and see how she's doing. We definitely have some dead bees on the bottom. From what I can roughly tell, I would say probably a solid 2 inches. So that would be an unacceptable loss from what I've learned about these. Most people consider an inch, maybe tops an inch and a half of dead bees to be okay. There's still a cluster. We'll have to look and see why they died. It could have been me turning the AC off at night. They could just be out of syrup. I'm going to try to figure that out, but that's more than I want. All right, here's the package. We're going to open them up and see how they did. Pop the cover off here. Let me see if the queen's alive. Oh no, total bust. She did not survive. I wonder if they couldn't feed her through that mesh. There's no bees up in the top chamber here like there were last time. So, not sure what happened there. That's sad. Syrup can feels empty. Yeah. Syrup can is completely empty. Barely a drop in there. So that could be the reason for the high die-off. Why the queen died, I don't know. But we won't be using the wooden cages anyways. We're going to be shipping them with the plastic cages. And she'll hang down in the cluster, so maybe that'll help. Definitely not a very good sign, I would say. Alright, let's get these girls opened so I can see how many actually died. Definitely easier to open with a Hive tool, that's for sure. I'd rather it be too hard to open than too easy, that's for certain. I'm sure the Postal Service does too. Alright. Definitely tell I'm not an expert at this. Okay. I think maybe got it finally. Yikes. That one's takes a little finesse. Still got some bees in there, but I can smell the dead bees. In fact, they're falling out. So there they are. They're falling out the entrance. Man, that sucks. Excuse me, girls. Let me just flip you around. Yeah, most everything pretty empty. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to turn out here. I think this is a bust. You can already see the pile of dead bees there. And I'm sure just like last time it's deceptive. I'm like, oh, that looks like a really nice cluster. Well, what it is, I think there's a cluster of live bees on a big mountain of dead bees. So I'll do the same thing as last time. I'll give them a minute to crawl up, and that'll show us how many are dead on the bottom, which looks and smells like a fair number. Not that much different than the last round, even though there were far more bees. I'd say I got 2 good deep frames of coverage, which is definitely not enough. And then look at all those dead bees there. Big, massive die-off. You know, one question I have, and I haven't really found an answer to yet online, is if you make the syrup thicker, will it last longer? My common sense says probably, because that's going to be more dense, the bees can't drink as quickly. It's going to be more calories, right? Instead of it being a 1-to-1 like this was. So maybe that's an option, but there's nothing in here at all. And that's probably the kind of size package that I would put in the mail. So that's 6 days. They're taking a heavy loss there. That's pretty nerve-wracking. So there's the die-off. It was pretty massive. I got a hive tool and the queen cage there for a size reference. There's a few live bees crawling out of there, but nothing significant. Really a couple scraggly frames of surviving bees, very few. So this package would have pretty much been dead on arrival. I'm not sure what happened with this one. The queen, I'm still not sure if they can feed through that top groove of the cage or not. Maybe I should have put some attendants up there. I don't know if that was the test for this one, but queen did not survive. Syrup was completely dry. Massive die-off of the package. Did that occur because I turned the AC off? But we were still talking in the low to mid 70-degree Fahrenheit range overnight, and I can't imagine the Postal Service trucks being under 70 degrees all the time either, like it is in the trailer. Maybe I made the syrup too thin. Maybe I need to make it thicker. There's definitely no way to increase the amount of syrup because that can only hold so much. So I'm not really sure. This does not bode well for the 5-day delivery I have planned up to Utah here in a few days. So I'm sorry, Israel man, if you're watching this. This is probably what you're going to get. I hope you at least get a queen out of this deal. But that's just the reality. This is package number 2, and it was a total failure in my opinion. I just got my cage tethers in. They're listing them as Jay-Z candy cap and hanging strip, not cage tether. But that's what they look like right here. It just covers the candy plug here so the workers cannot chew the queen out. And then it's got a little piece here so it'll lock into the cage, the package cage. So it just hangs just like that. And then when you put your syrup can in, it will actually lock in place so it can't come loose. As you can see, it just hangs right down there, so it'll hang right there by the cluster. So the queen should be taken care of, and I don't believe it should come loose. All right, that's it. That was the last piece I need to start making packages.